Welcome to the People's Condition of the State Report. My name is Sheree Mortiz. I am Iowa CCI Action Board President. I'm a retired public school teacher and live in Des Moines on the East Side. We are here today to deliver our People's Condition of the State. Governor Reynolds just wrapped up her address, and we believe the condition of our people is strong, but the condition of our state's leadership is lacking, irresponsible, and reckless. We heard from the governor that she believes in transparency, which is laughable since she continues to dodge interacting with media, refuses to have press conferences, and dodges interacting with the public in general. This year, Reynolds agreed to only one debate with her Democratic challenger and made no commitment regarding future news conferences, which she continues to avoid. Governor Reynolds' speech today was yet again pandering to stoke division and fear between ourselves, our schools, and teachers. And she seems to think the most pressing issue of our time is cutting taxes to the bone, depriving our families, communities, our land, and our environment of the resources needed to be sustainable and healthy. Not surprisingly, we heard little to nothing about what Governor Reynolds plans to do to crack down on factory farms and corporate ag polluters who contribute to the more than 750 impaired waterways in our state. But that's not the only thing Governor Reynolds omitted, glossed over, or completely missed the mark in terms of what needs to be done to make Iowa a great state that welcomes and supports all people of all backgrounds, identities, or abilities. She makes no effort to bring people together to do the big things that improves everybody's life. And quite frankly, we see pressing issues in Iowa that Reynolds fails to address that put people and planet first. Today, I am happy to be here with speakers who will be addressing areas of concern like rural healthcare, affordable housing, public education, and the CO2 pipelines proposed to tear across the state of Iowa. To start us off this evening, Dr. Glenn Hurst will present comments regarding rural healthcare. Go ahead, Glenn, take it over.
Thank you, Sheree. Hi. I'm Dr. Glenn Hurst. I'm a family practice physician in Minden, Iowa, and I was a frontline worker in Iowa nursing homes during the COVID pandemic. I was really disappointed today not to hear a healthcare agenda from Governor Kim Reynolds. She has much to answer to or for because of the state of our healthcare system today. Approximately 50% of the deaths from COVID in Iowa were seniors in nursing facilities, long-term care facilities. The governor's repetitive celebration of keeping Iowa open during the pandemic is really a slap in the face to all of us frontline workers who lost loved ones and who stood there and watched people die because of her policies. We know her policies were a source of death. But this is only one example of her administration's work to rid rural Iowa of Iowans for her corporate agenda. When she speaks, she hides her assault on rural Iowa, touting increased spending on pet projects and mentions these investments as investments instead of what they actually are, which are failures, because they fall short of the mark in terms of funding the most important pieces of healthcare and any progress in our state. She failed to fully fund Medicaid patient stays in nursing homes. So in July of 2022, we had lost 11 nursing homes from the previous year's count. That's on top of the 20 plus nursing homes that we've lost over the last 7 years. And the majority of these being lost due to underfunding of Medicaid patients in rural communities. These were rural nursing homes, rural jobs affecting our rural economy and our rural lifestyle. She failed to fully fund mental health care, which has led to worsening illness. In an Iowa.gov survey in 2014, 8.9% of people stated that their mental health was not good for 14 out of the last 30 days. That's not a bad day. That is a mental health crisis that she is responsible for. The percentage gets progressively worse each year, up to 2022, in which it was increased to 13%. That's 46% change for the worse of people having mental health crisis 14 out of 30 days of the month. Her failure to incentivize psychiatrists to stay in our state is evidenced by the fact that we are 47th in the nation for the number of psychiatrists who are licensed to practice in our state. We've begun to see rural hospitals close, like the hospital in Keokuk, which shuttered its doors in 2022. This is a hospital that had moved to a critical access status, and an emergency rural hospital designation may have kept the doors open slightly longer, but with even further limited resources and services. Look, eventually, other critical access hospitals across the state that were baited into accepting that designation, they're going to begin cutting services. They're going to begin closing because of underpayment by Medicaid. And once again, it's the governor's policies that will leave rural Iowans without fair options for care. In terms of healthcare, none of Governor Reynolds or the Republican-led legislature's policies have been sufficient. In fact, they are the root source of the death of rural healthcare. They are leading to the death of our rural economies and indeed the death of rural Iowans.
Thank you, Glenn. Next up is Evan Hudson. He will be speaking about affordable housing.
Hi, my name is Evan Hudson. I'm with the Dubuque chapter of CCI, and I'll be talking about housing tonight, which notably Kim Reynolds did not do in her State of the State speech. It's an issue that's close to my heart because I myself was homeless in 2017. I think I became homeless in a similar way to many Americans. I was working in a restaurant and did not have great savings, and my landlord informed me that the house was being sold in the next week, and I didn't have money to pay for a deposit or first and last month's rent. And so I ended up living in a shed and sleeping in my car sometimes while I was still working. I think this is a situation that I'm not alone in. Many Americans find themselves in a precarious situation. Living wages, they don't get paid living wages for a full-time job, and if they aren't capable of paying rent, then a situation like what happened to me could happen to them very quickly. In cities like Dubuque, a lot of the median rent is over 50% of what people get paid for an income, and it's a difficult situation. I think housing is an issue that we need to focus on. And Kim Reynolds has said that she would stand up for fair, affordable housing, but thus far has not kept her word on that. But in Dubuque, the CCI has chosen housing as an issue that we're going to focus on in 2023. And we have some plans to work with stakeholders on the ground to make sure that we can secure affordable, quality housing for all people in Dubuque. One thing we're going to do is form interest groups for renters, like a renters union, where we can provide a venue for renters to air their grievances against landlords that aren't doing what they're supposed to. For example, not performing repairs or taking the renter's deposit. Additionally, we're going to be doing outreach with elected officials and community groups that are on the ground. I've been doing work for years, if not decades, on this issue, and also working with landlords, because I think there's an opportunity here for working together because there's an area of mutual interest here. I think everyone wants to see Iowans have fair, affordable, quality housing, and to me, this is ultimately about Iowan values. In Iowa, we stand up for our neighbors. We make sure that people in our communities are taken care of. Housing is a huge part of this. We want to make sure that everyone in our community has the resources they need to be safe and healthy and fulfill their potential as citizens. And I think even though this is a huge issue, it's going to take a lot of work. I'm confident in our ability to come together and work together to solve the problem of quality, fair, affordable housing in Iowa. So thank you very much. I'm grateful to be here today, and I look forward to working with all of you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Evan. Viola Perry will now address issues around education.
I'm Viola Perry, and I'm a retiree from the Des Moines Public School System. Now, as a teacher, I was dedicated and committed to the belief that all students can learn, regardless of backgrounds or circumstances. Now, my challenge was creating a stage where my many students could stand on, striving for academic success at varying levels. Now, taking on those challenges, it did bring many memorable rewards as being a Des Moines schools teacher. That was a challenge then. The challenge now for public schools, Iowa public schools, is the voucher proposal or scholarship. Now, granted, it will give some parents choices of private schooling, but at the cost of $55 million that public schools could lose, or they could use for the critical needs of our students, especially with the pandemic, which presented greater challenges for the school system, for the teachers in general, and students and staff. Now, we take a closer look at that voucher proposal or scholarship, however we want to call that. We know public education is for everyone, whereas with the voucher, private schools, they get to select. And they select students could be on the basis of religion or even intellectual abilities. As far as rural students, well, parents may not be able to participate because there aren't any rather access or limited access to private school. So what does that mean? Actually, it would mean that the rural schools would be paying for urban children to go to private schools. If we look at that voucher, we need to face it, that it will take away money from our public schools. And who's to say that it will not expand? I understand that it will be capped at 10,000 students. But then we look at Ohio. Well, in 2005, they had 3,000 students on the voucher program or proposal. Now they have 69,000 and with about 685 million. So we look at this, we have to think clearly and think about what this proposal could do to our public schools. Public school education is a right for everyone. And I will say this, many of us came up through public education, from your legislatures to even your governor, all around people generally who come through public education. And the thing about it is we need to also think about the fact that we can't turn a blind eye or a deaf ear about our public education, about what is happening to it. We need to understand we have to be or show ways of being very proactive and showing up and letting people know and making sure that we're out there supporting public education. Again, it is a right and it is a privilege. And I would say to you that not all parents will be able to get that tuition that they are promising. And I believe that would be maybe $5,000 or more. But even then, it may not be enough. And also remember too, with the voucher proposal or scholarship, however you want to call it, they will not provide transportation. So again, rural schools need to be aware of the fact of where they stand as far as the voucher proposal or scholarship. And then our public education. We cannot sit back and think that things are going to work out. Money is being taken away for things that the educators need, class reduction, teacher salaries, programs for students, a number of things that we need. We cannot let it die. Public education is the fabric of this country. And again, we can't turn a blind eye. We have to stand up be proactive, even if you do not have kids in school. Fight for the right for other students to have a quality public education. Thank you.
Thanks, V. And lastly, Berlin will be providing some more context regarding the ongoing battle against the proposed CO2 pipelines.
Hey, thanks everyone for what you've been commenting on. It's good to hear about the state that I live in. I'm Berlin Wolbeater, joining you here from Toledo in Tama County. And tonight my task of this segment of the People's Condition of the State Address is to summarize our opposition to carbon capture and CO2 transport pipelines proposed for construction through Iowa by Summit, Navigator, and Wolf Carbon Solutions. Of course, this task is impossible because, like me, every willing and responsible Iowan can readily inform and educate themselves about these suspect proposals. And then to address all that researched information here, it would just take forever and it would be more time than I have. And yet, Governor Reynolds has condensed her entire conversation and response on this subject down to 2 sentences. Her brief offering has been, there is a process in place, let the process play out. And as you heard tonight, she had absolutely nothing to say about it. And Representative Pat Grassley says this is the topic that has drawn more comments than any other subject he's ever had to deal with. And she said nothing. It is simply not believable she could have so little to say about this serious matter, unless, as it appears, this is a pathetic cover for a chosen preferred outcome, which is that eminent domain be allowed and abused to secure easements on privately owned land by these companies with cozy ties to the governor. Under the disguise, in the end, she'll say, well, it was just due process. We, the people, know we need to get off this conveyor belt to disaster now. We've done our research and we know this is all a grab for taxpayer money and a greenwashing scheme. We owe these companies nothing, not our time, not our consideration, not our compromise, not the use of our land, and certainly not a return on money that they have chosen to invest prematurely. We know these desperate companies engage in deceptive and intrusive behaviors with private landowners. We know these projects have not lived up to their climate solution hype and only serve to prop up polluting fossil fuel, ethanol, and fertilizer industries. As citizens, we know these pipelines are harmful to land and potentially harmful or deadly to animals and humans. Our communities along the routes of these hundreds of miles of proposed pipelines are not prepared and are not equipped for pipeline rupture events. And we have proof when strong leadership is needed to protect Iowans and our environment. The governor and the agencies she appoints leadership to have already repeatedly failed us. We have a decade-long trend of impaired waters, and just today, another report came out from the Isaac Walton League about the number of impaired waters they tested for last year. Recently, December 8th, 2022, we had a hazardous fire at a Marengo recycling plant, previously known to be of concern to the state agencies responsible for oversight. And we've had inadequate funding to fully staff agencies responsible for Iowa's giant polluting industries. If our governor and state agencies are unable or unwilling to anticipate previous disasters and protect us, how can we trust their decision-making on these pressurized CO2 pipelines proposed for our future? Governor Reynolds, you have repeatedly bragged that you trust Iowans to do the right thing, and you've crowed that Iowans know right from wrong. Well, confirm your belief and trust in us now. Carbon capture and transport pipelines through Iowa are wrong. And we do know the difference between a strong leader willing to stand up to these pipeline bullies who threaten our safety and well-being, and a weak governor willing to sell us out for her own money, power, and self-interest. With or without your leadership, we will continue to step up, organize, and oppose these climate scams, securing a better future for Iowa. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Berlin. As a conclusion to our program tonight, I want to offer a few words. We used to be proud to live in Iowa when some Iowans weren't going after our neighbors, stoking fear through racism and transphobia. It's the job of the governor to represent and lead all of us, not just her loyal mob and big donors. There's an undeniable truth. We know that when we all do better, we all do better. And tonight, I want to add, we all do better when we know better. But we are living in a state political environment where facts are distorted or hidden. So Iowa CCI is ready and able to fill in that empty space. The lack of leadership and transparency by the Reynolds administration is truly irresponsible and reckless. But we will continue to be the enlightened disruptors against business as usual, and we will fill the void by coming together, fostering community, and rise up for our people and planet. Because the condition of our people, our Iowa values are strong, even if leadership at the top isn't. We don't turn around and we won't back down. We will move onward. From the People's House here at Iowa CCI headquarters to yours, well wishes to each and every one.